41 days from Inauguration Day, 35 days since the election, and the great correction is all around us. Donald Trump was reelected. Daniel Penny was acquitted. BLM is done. Fringe, extreme, woke is over. DEI is done. And the once powerful mainstream media has been reduced to a slow trickle. The latest example, the New York Times, covering the Daniel Penny verdict, writing, quote, "The jury acquits man who was choking rider on the subway." Oh, really, New York Times? Is that what happened? Is that what happened in this case? And here's a guest on another network comparing Jordan Neely to O.J. Simpson.
The law is rife with examples of people who are acquitted in criminal cases and yet find justice with respect to civil accountability. I think the best example of that is with respect to Ron Goldman being the man who was murdered alongside Nicole Brown Simpson. Even though O.J. Simpson was never found criminally guilty for those two murders, Fred Goldman, the father, along with his daughter, then sued O.J. Simpson civilly and won a fairly large verdict with respect to civil liability for O.J. Simpson.
I always say this, where do they find these people? But I mean it this time, like, where do they find these people? And the only reason that I point any of this out is to reinforce just how out of touch the rest of the media has become in the age of Trump. The mainstream media have now been reduced to covering what they think their friends in places like New York and Washington want to hear. That's basically 24 hours a day on CNN. That's what they've become as the attempt to re-racialize America completely fails. The same people who have never dealt with race firsthand, unless you count housekeepers and landscapers, want to make every single story in the news about race. But guess what? All things being equal, if Daniel Penny was a black man, we never hear about this case in the first place because Alvin Bragg never charges a black man for doing the right thing on the subway. But America is healing. America is coming back. Look at this. Donald Trump in Paris. More proof of the great correction that's happening right now. This photo of Donald Trump sitting next to Jill Biden, chatting away without a care in the world. More proof. And the fact that Donald Trump just launched a cologne perfume line called Fight, 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 using that same photo in their marketing material, a fragrance your enemies can't resist, that's just, you don't need a different word. That's funny. Donald Trump is having fun. And I bet Jill Biden wears the perfume, and I bet Joe loves it. I bet that revs his engine, because that's how broken the Democratic Party is right now. JFK, who Joe Biden idolizes, put a man on the moon. Joe Biden put a man in the ladies' restroom. Joe Biden claimed yesterday that Jill left Paris to visit family in Italy, and wow, those Jill Biden genes are really something else. Take a look.
But Jill has been dealing with women's equality for women's health research. And she just got back from Abu Dhabi and all through Africa and ended up, although she did go spend a little time in Sicily because just a day or so to meet her great-great-grandmother's parents. She made fun of me going back on the Irish, you know? Pat, but I tell you what, I don't screw around. When she gets her Irish, when she gets her Italian up, I don't mess with her. But anyway, you'll all see her tonight. She's up changing.
Wait, we might have buried the lead there, Joe. According to Joe Biden, Jill Biden went to Italy to meet her great-great-grandmother's parents. Jill Biden is 73 years old, meaning her great-great-grandmother's parents would be, and I'm lowballing this, approximately 180 years old. Now, I don't blame Jill. If I had family that was 180 years old living in Italy, I would visit too. The difference between Trump and Biden right now, people laugh with Donald Trump. People are laughing every day at Joe Biden because Donald Trump is the president right now. Maybe not officially, but when you look at the intangibles, he has already taken over. Take a look at the faces of world leaders when Donald Trump walked into Notre Dame in Paris over the weekend. You see President Zelensky, he's next. The president of Ukraine, there he is. Does he look maybe a little nervous that the gravy train could be coming to an end? That's more proof that the great correction is already happening. And we should note, Kamala Harris was invited to the ceremony Saturday as well, but Kamala is not a real leader. She is a loser who over the last 35 days has shown the world exactly who she really is. My grandmother used to say, she's got a lot of class, but it's all low. All of this, well, our former president, again, president in name only, Joe Biden, continues to give away your money. Take a look.
With a new constitution, a new government that serves all Syrians. And this process will be determined by the Syrian people themselves. And the United States will do whatever we can to support them, including through humanitarian relief to help restore Syria after more than a decade of war and generations of brutality by the Assad family.
Including through humanitarian relief. 4 words spoken by a man that couldn't be more out of touch with you, the American people, if he tried. Right now, this country is $36 trillion in debt, and now Joe wants to send your money to Syria, another country that Americans can't find on a map, and another country that is not of any real importance to the American people. Syria, by the way, a country that right now is being run by Islamic terrorists. ISIS runs Syria. Who cares what happens in Syria? And I ask that because I don't think anybody does. And I'm not trying to be mean. I'm just trying to move our critics beyond our reputation of Second World War American isolationism to where we really are today, and that is simply America first, because those are 2 very different things. Donald Trump on Truth Social over the weekend, posting the United States should not have anything to do with Syria. This is not our fight. Let it play out. Do not get involved. But here is Joe Biden with an update on how Americans can help the people of Syria rebuild.
It's a moment of historic opportunity for the long-suffering people of Syria to build a better future for their proud country. It's also a moment of risk and uncertainty. As we all turn to the question of what comes next, the United States will work with our partners and the stakeholders in Syria to help them seize an opportunity to manage the risks.
Joe, it's a moment for them to figure it out. It's a moment of historic opportunity to help the long-suffering people of Syria rebuild. That's what Joe said. Joe, when was the last time the United States successfully rebuilt anything in any other country? You handed Afghanistan back to the Taliban in 2021. Take a look at this. The Taliban now has their logo and their flag painted on the gate to what was once the U.S. Embassy in Kabul. And look at Iraq. I thought we were going to bring democracy, right, Dick Cheney? We're going to bring democracy to Iraq once we get rid of Saddam Hussein. Did that happen? Take a look at Ukraine. We've spent $100 billion there over the last 3 years, and I'm wondering if we've made anything better in Ukraine. 1 million people are dead, Joe. So I'll ask again, why doesn't your administration care about what's going on here in the United States? Take a look at the situation in North Carolina right now.
They're all our neighbors, so when they come down and we cook, it's like a barbecue. We're over at our friend's house. Kind of messed up, but we're still at our friend's house. So
all of the things that kind of make up your life around you are just gone. And, you know, you go to bed one night and then you get up the next morning and you don't have somewhere necessarily to put your head that next night, you know, and you're trying to figure out how am I going to rebuild, how am I going to restart. You know, I'm a nurse myself, and even trying, how am I going to get to work? I don't have a car anymore.
That's Western North Carolina 2 months after a hurricane that hit North Carolina, which is a state here, Joe, in the United States of America. But Joe Biden doesn't care about that. The man who defines America last, you'll see Joe Biden's picture if you look it up, America last, Joe Biden continues to send billions of dollars to countries that you have to cross an ocean to get to. In just the last 7 days, $1 billion to Angola in Africa. Over the weekend, we heard about that humanitarian aid package for Syria, and we just found out that Joe is sending another $988 million to Ukraine. Another $1 billion to Ukraine. Is anybody sick of this yet? None of that is what 77 million people voted for on Election Day. Does anyone else think it's a little odd that this little man right here, President Zelensky, wanted Kamala Harris to win the election, and this man right here, this tyrant in Russia, President Putin, wanted Donald Trump to win? Does anyone think that's a little weird? That we've got one president in Paris telling the world the war in Ukraine is going to end, and on the same day we've got another president sending $1 billion to Ukraine to keep the same war going. A war that Joe Biden has promised the American people will not end with American boots on the ground in Ukraine, which is a promise that the American people have heard before.
The planes, the tanks, the guns, the freighters, which will enable them to fight for their liberty and our security.
That was FDR just before Pearl Harbor happened on sending ships, planes, tanks, guns to England to fight the Nazis. America would eventually enter the Second World War and lose over 400,000 soldiers. Ukraine is not Great Britain in this case. Putin is not Hitler, and neither is Donald Trump, by the way. And as the Great Correction continues, many of the dinosaurs in the media seem just stunned that maybe Donald Trump is going to rethink our Ukraine policy just a little bit in 41 days. Take a look.
Should Ukraine prepare for less aid from the United States after you're sworn into office?
Yeah, probably. Sure.
You've said you can end the war in
We're in
24
for 350 billion, and Europe is in for 100 billion. Why isn't Europe in for the same as us? The one thing that should happen is that Europe should come in they should equalize. And, you know, Biden, all he had to do, like I did with NATO, I said, you got to pay your bills. They weren't paying their bills.
Donald Trump wants to end the war in Ukraine while Joe Biden wants to keep that war going. Why is that? This headline today from the largest newspaper in Kyiv in Ukraine: President Zelensky plans to call President Biden to discuss NATO invitation for Ukraine. President Zelensky, it's not going to happen. Give it up. 77 million Americans voted to end the war in Ukraine, not escalate it. If Ukraine joins NATO, America's at war with Russia, and we know what happens after that. I don't even want to talk about it. And that is the main lesson of the moment that we're living through right now. And that's why January the 20th can't come soon enough. America needs Donald Trump back in the White House today. And I mean right now more than ever before, because all the current administration wants to do is escalate wars. But the Great Correction is all around us. It's already happening, and it's coming, whether they like it or not.
Information. Truth is freedom. Is Newsmax. It's real news for real people.